as a top legal entrepreneur, the American Bar Association as a legal rebel, that sounds cool, and much more. In addition, she recently served as the president of the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium, or CLOC, which is a huge thing around the world. It's the largest and fastest growing community focused on the business of law. Mary is also a passionate leader pushing forward disruptive technology and processes designed to change the future of the legal industry. And last but not least, go Bears. Next, we have Jonathan Chow. Now, John is a good friend of mine. John is a business development manager at Everlaw. John manages the Everlaw strategic partnerships in the legal industry and runs special programs and initiatives such as Everlaw for Good. Prior to joining Everlaw, John was deeply involved in the expansion of Big Law into China, as well as the rise of legal innovation in Big Law. He led the business development and marketing efforts for the Denton's own Next Law Labs, the first legal tech venture created by a law firm, and supported the growth of Denton's Next Law family of companies. John, thank you so much for being here, and thank you so much for your support. Welcome aboard. Next, finally, and last but not least, we have Daniel Becker. Daniel is calling in from Brazil at this point in time. He's the partner at BBL Advogados, Director of New Technologies at the Brazilian Center for Mediation and Arbitration, CBMA, and a member of the Legislative Affairs Commission of the Rio de Janeiro Bar Association. He's the organizer of the books, The Tomorrow Lawyer, Articles in Honor of Professor Richard Susskind, which I strongly recommend everyone to read, not just the book itself, but the article that was written by Daniel. The End of Lawyers, Articles in Honor of Professor Richard Susskind, Volume 2, Regulation 4.0, Litigation 4.0, and Comments on the Brazilian Data Protection Law, all published in Portuguese by Thomson Reuters. In other words, Daniel is also somebody who straddles the intersection of law of tech and the tech of law, and therefore I consider him a close friend as well. So welcome once aboard. Welcome once again to everybody. Thank you all panelists for joining us today. So without further ado, I think what I will do right now is to hand the time over to Mary, who will be sharing her thoughts for the next 10 minutes. We'll then go to John and finally Daniel, and then we'll open the floor to questions. I hope everyone, please be prepared with questions, because these are all people with deep insight into the legal technology industry and how they can affect your role as legal technologists or as lawyers in the 21st century. So be prepared to ask them all the questions that you have. Without further ado, Mary, over to you.
Thank you so much, Josh. Well, as Josh mentioned, I am a fellow Golden Bear myself. So I'm just thrilled to be able to be here to speak to Berkeley students. It's very meaningful to me personally, so go Bears. Those of you who don't know me, I always like to start by letting you know that I'm actually not a lawyer by training. And so the next question everyone always asks me is, why do you care so much about this space? How did you get here? Well, so I started my career actually as a former investment banker and then eventually as a consultant. But then I found myself working at a multinational law firm called Orrick, where I was focused on profitability. And if you fast forward a few years after that, I started doing what's called legal operations at Google. And when I got there, my general counsel, my GC, he started asking me questions like, are we getting good value out of the money we're spending? Without tracking time, how do I know if people are being productive? How do I know when and where I should add headcount in my department? Where should we be leveraging technology more? And with each of these questions that he was asking me, I went, oh, yep, I don't know. And so that kind of began my journey and why I'm so passionate about this space. If you look across any modern corporation right now, look at every single function, and function after function, whether it's finance or HR or IT or marketing or sales, every single area has been completely transformed from the inside out, right? We see this redefined by technology, by innovation, by data, and just merely the fact that you have to move at an unprecedented scale and speed right now. Except for one area has held out, and that is legal. So legal is now finally at that time where we're feeling this pressure, right? For the first time, we're starting to see real deep disruption and opportunity in our space. And I think the reason we're all here today is because the industry is finally changing in really powerful ways that's going to impact each of us if it hasn't already, and it's certainly going to impact our future. And if you think about it, in my view at least, it's always been the in-house legal departments who played the biggest role as drivers of this change, right? Because the role of the general counsel has changed. In the past, they were really focused on fighting fires, keeping people out of jail, and just generally hired to be that best lawyer in the room. But now the GCs have to ask new questions, right? They have to staff up in new ways. They have new challenges to take on. And they have to manage new functions that kind of go far beyond what the traditional general counsel decision-making was. The GC of today is responsible for strategic planning, for budgeting, professional development, for tools, resources, training, data analytics, all these things that they weren't trained on in law school at the law firms, right? Nor in many cases do they have any interest in this. And so with that responsibility came the rise of what's now known as legal operations. General counsels started to hire business professionals to act as their right hand, to have a seat at the table, to help run the rest of the department. And so that's what I used to do at Google. When I first started out, there were no job descriptions, right? We were just told to come in and look around and help solve the problems we could find. And a few of us ended up finding each other who were in similar roles, and we started meeting regularly to share ideas, share findings and best practices. And this was the birth of that organization now known as CLOC, the Corporate Legal Operations Consortium. That group met and we grew and grew over time until there were really none of us had a conference room that could hold all the people. And so we formally created CLOC as this global organization back in the beginning of 2016. And when that group emerged, it suddenly had this major effect on accelerating the pace of change in legal departments because we were talking to each other. We had shared needs. We were creating demands in the industry. And now today, that is the largest organization of legal ops professionals from around the world. And it's really based on the idea of sharing it and collaborating, the idea that we can do things faster and better as an industry if we're talking to each other, more so than we could if we were all working individually. So since we started, the legal ops role has exploded. There's roughly 3,500 members of CLOC around the globe in every possible industry, departments of every size, even small departments. So we're even seeing now legal ops is the first headcount maybe hired after the general counsel. And we even heard of one example where it was hired before the general counsel at a startup. So the role has grown a ton, but not just in prevalence. We've seen it grow in stature and in scope, right? So we're seeing many people in legal ops roles at the vice president, senior vice president level at big companies, and very commonly at the director level. So that scope is growing. It continues to expand daily. To me, that's really exciting. So a little bit about my background. I left Google about 11 months ago and joined Ironclad. But at quick glance, just to let you know what legal ops actually was, my team at Google had grown over that 13 years to over 60 people doing legal operations. And our purpose, as we defined our team, was to multiply legal's impact by driving workflow innovation, operational excellence, and focused execution. And we did that by operating a few specific areas. One, outside counsel and vendor management. So that included budgeting, financial management, working with law firms. Two, tech enablement, systems, tools, workflows, optimization. Three, data and analytics, simple business intelligence, which was data provisioning and management, dashboards, visualization, advanced analytics. Number four, education and knowledge management. That meant the professional development trainings, centralized knowledge hubs, help centers, and really just documenting all the policies and processes that we were putting together across legal. And then last but not least, we had a group called program management, which drove our strategic initiatives. We partnered with the leadership team of our legal department on high impact cross-functional projects, process improvement, project management, strategic planning, execution, so big kind of company goals and such. So what is the effect of all this, right? With more and more companies, with more departments, with people doing this kind of work, this legal ops work, What has this done in the industry? Well, it created pressure. It created a lot of pressure on the industry. It created a demand for more options, a demand for technology, a demand for different ways of working and delivering legal services. And we see that change kind of everywhere we look right now, right? And so what happens next? Well, if you think about the growth and the potential of legal tech, everyone's mind automatically goes to things like machine learning and artificial intelligence. But actually, I think the most exciting potential and impact in front of us is much more basic than that. It's actually about surfacing data. And technology to me is exciting right now because data is everything. So you've got legal operations who continue to operate in a very antiquated way without data, without anything to inform decisions, right? But I notice that every time I get a question these days, the answer is data. So how do I run a legal department well? You use data. Well, what technology should I put in first? Well, depends what data you need to collect. Should I hire a legal ops person? Well, yes, because you need someone to gather and interpret that data. So data really is the foundation for everything that legal modernization is focused on, right? By structuring, gathering, analyzing data, we can finally build a clear picture about where we want to invest our time and energy to have the greatest impact in a department. And our leaders have never had the ability to answer really key questions like, how do you know that legal demand is going up? Or what parts of your business are heating up or cooling down? Or what are people even working on all day, right? What's taking up people's time? What are some of the repeat issues that are coming in over and over? We haven't even scratched the surface on the potential here, because when you ask, what department or what company is doing this well, I don't think anyone is doing this well. Well, not yet. So we still have a long way to go. And so even though legal tech has come a long way, we all know getting lawyers to get comfortable with that new way of thinking or to see the value of changing the way they work, that's not easy, right? The challenges of getting lawyers to change are present everywhere. I've seen it again and again, lots of war wounds and stories about that. But if we were going to create real change, we have to get people to think differently. We have to find a way to shift the mind frame from why is this change scary to what can this allow me to do? And so we need, and we're seeing now, a real change in our culture and our mindset. We're seeing a shift from being defined by tradition and emphasizing and celebrating innovation. And that's thanks to groups like this, the creation of a group like this, and to people like you. So this is an incredibly fun-filled journey that we've been on already. We're continuing to redefine the future of this industry and this profession. I'm super excited for where this can go, and I look forward to working with all of you on that. And with that, I turn the time over to John.
Thanks so much, Mary. And hey, everybody. It's great to be here. Thanks, Josh, for inviting me. As Josh mentioned, my name is John Chow. I am a business development manager at a legal technology startup called Everlaw. We are a modern cloud-based discovery platform. And the things about us as a company that I find super cool and relevant to the BLIT community is that we are founded here in Berkeley. Our founder and CEO, Ajay Shankar, actually began working on the prototype of Everlaw in his apartment in North Berkeley while getting his PhD here in computer science, while at the same time moonlighting at a law firm as their technical consultant and seeing their pain points firsthand, which was the inspiration for building a solution and a platform. So suffice to say, you all have some amazing alumni doing big things in legal tech. There's clearly a spirit and appetite for innovation at Berkeley, and I love the community that you all are building here. So for today, I actually wanted to take you through my journey into legal tech and innovation and share what I've seen and learned along the way and kind of reflect on where we are today, how it's relevant for you as you take next steps in your career. And among the amazing speakers that we have here and kind of thought leaders that I've been able to work with, I feel like I'm kind of like the Forrest Gump of legal tech. And I hope that's not the soundbite that ends up going on my LinkedIn profile after this. But what I mean by that is that I was fortunate enough to be able to stumble my way into some major developments in the industry without having a deep legal practicing background or a deep technical background. But the unique vantage point that I think that I bring is experiencing this all from a layman's perspective. And what I found in my career that I've been able to bring is this perpetual willingness to learn, to adapt to new environments, and bring a human-centered and empathetic and creative approach to problem solving. And hopefully my perspective could be a good entry point to newcomers in the industry. So starting with my background, I, just like Mary, I'm not a lawyer. I have been in the legal industry for about a decade though. And in the past 6 years, that has focused around legal technology and innovation. But I've always had a deep respect and admiration for lawyers and the role that they play in society. And I'll be the first to admit, I love me some good legal dramas and movies. I'm definitely a fan. So I graduated college in 2010. I was at USC studying international relations and political science. A lot of people in my undergrad program pursued law, but job opportunities at that time were slim pickings. The economy was down. I moved to Shanghai, China, where my parents lived. And I managed to land an internship at an international law firm called Dentons, which ended up becoming the largest law firm in the world by headcount. And really the first feeling that I had when I joined was just pure gratitude to be there, just to have the opportunity to be mentored by such smart people solving complex problems. But as time went on, reality sank in and I started to feel like I started to see a lot of things that they don't show in movies, which is a lot of drudgery, a lot of manual tasks that takes hours, late nights, even weekends. And there was no incentive to change how lawyers worked. The system rewarded this 70-hour work week mentality. It was like a badge of honor for a lot of lawyers. But along with that, there was this palpable stress that existed in a law firm environment that everyone just kind of accepted was part of the job description. Some of the phrases that I heard while I was there was, well, this is just how things are in big law. I've heard partners say, well, I don't care if it takes an associate all night to finish something. You just got to do it. You got to pay your dues. You got to tough it out, especially if you're junior in your career. And if you're not down with that, maybe you're just lazy or you're not cut out for this industry. So it made it seem like if you envisioned a world that was better or that where this wasn't the case, there was something wrong with you. But as I got to know lawyers better, I learned that a lot of them were actually unhappy. Even lawyers that had great track records, had been in the profession for a long time and were lawyers that I actually looked up to and I kind of considered my heroes. They were stressing about meeting their billable hour requirements. At the same time, partners in the law firm were under pressure to write off hours from the bill to the client if a junior lawyer took too long on a project. And clients became more demanding. They were putting more of that pressure on law firms that Mary was talking about. And I would later learn that all stemmed from this cost cutting that was going on across the entire global economy. And I ended up transitioning from that legal track onto the business development and marketing department within the firm, where I would focus on helping partners with their pitch proposals and building business, their RFP responses. And it's kind of a role that was created to drive efficiency as well and competitiveness for law firms. So that was actually my first exposure to an alternative career track in the legal space that I didn't know existed before. So this was 2012, 2013, and little did I know that all these things that I was seeing were actually kind of related to this, these tectonic shifts that were happening below the surface that were gradually changing the industry. At that time, I had never heard of legal innovation or legal technology or the rise of legal ops, and I didn't understand what any of that meant. All this came together though when Dentons launched a new venture called Next Law Labs in 2015. It was the industry's first legal technology accelerator launched by a law firm, and there was a venture investment arm called Next Law Ventures. And there was this explosion of activity in the startup space around this time, and there was. But at the same time, there was not many sources of funding. Traditional VCs were not interested in the legal tech space. It didn't seem to matter as much to them. And we set out on a mission to change that, especially since we wanted to invest in the early stage legal technology startups that kind of represented the cutting edge of the industry, parts that had massive potential for growth and scalability. We wanted to leverage Dentons as the perfect testing ground for those type of emerging technologies to help them scale. So Next Law Labs represented a paradigm shift for big law because they were finally acknowledging and accepting that technological disruption was coming for the legal industry and there was no stopping. Rather than ignoring it and becoming a victim of it, Dentons decided to invest and help shape the future. And a lot of firms in the industry started to begin following suit as well. I entered Next Law as a complete noob to legal tech. So the first thing that I sought to do was to find out, how did this all start? Like, what is happening here? I wanted to unpack the market context. And it really begins in 2008, the global financial crisis. Of course, legal technology and software existed before 2008, but that was really the starting point to understand legal tech in its current form today. And kind of 2 points I want to make around this is that in 2008, there was a power shift in the global economy. Corporations around the world were tightening their budgets, and this is kind of speaks to the rise of legal ops that Mary was talking about, driving, doubling down on cost savings, driving efficiencies, and that also affected law firms. There was a domino effect there. Basically, the power shifted from, the sellers of legal services to the buyers of legal services. Gone was the heyday of kind of big law excess. And the big learning for me here that kind of I also ran up against time after time was that law firms don't change unless clients demand it. So you can preach innovation all that you want in a law firm, but it's not going to make much of a difference if it doesn't affect the lawyer's bottom line. So lawyers are motivated very much by fear, but as kind of Mary said, I hope that they're motivated by the opportunity of innovation as well. The other kind of big trend that kind of emerged around 2008 and onwards was the rise of technology in general. So major advancements in how to manage data, as Mary mentioned, being like a core to legal tech, in cloud computing, artificial intelligence and machine learning, kind of bringing structure to unstructured data. And so so many of these other kind of general technology trends that made doing business better, faster, and cheaper we're coming to all these industries except for legal. So there's a stereotype that lawyers are Luddites and they're totally resistant to change and adopting technology. And while there is a lot of truth to that, that's not the full picture. Lawyers will adopt technology if certain conditions are met. And I mentioned that they're driven by client demand. But the other things that will drive adoption, if it's easy to use and intuitive and doesn't take too much of their precious hours to learn, if they're confident that the risks associated with using the technology are as low as possible, if it's proven to work, and if the environment that they work in encourages adoption, which requires that the value for money and kind of the economics of adoption are properly set. So I think I'm running up close to my time, but I kind of want to just end with this thought. And it's that actually now is the best time to be a lawyer. You are in an era where the industry is broadly discussing and actively pursuing technology that removes the drudgery of legal work by automating those manual, routine, and frankly boring, time-consuming tasks that lawyers have had to do for hundreds of years, that the lawyers that I worked with when I first started dreaded, but didn't really feel like they could do anything about. And there's so many more paths to pursue within the legal industry because of this disruption, outside of just being a litigator or being a corporate transactional lawyer. So I'll leave with that thought, and I will pass it over to Daniel.
Thank you, John. Hello, everyone. Here in Brazil, it's good afternoon. So I thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to talk about reality in Brazil, but it definitely affects other countries. So I think that would be interesting to talk about justice data. This is a topic that I've been studying for some time, differently from the US. This movement on law tech and legal tech started in Brazil approximately on 2016, like 8 years after the crash in 2008. So we could at least understand what was happening, and it was a good time to see what was going well in the US and Europe. For instance, in 2016, LexisNexis came to Brazil to start to prospect the Brazilian market, to invest in technology for the Brazilian market. Thomson Reuters also made a huge investment in Brazil to start developing technology, automation, document management in Brazil. Since Brazil is a huge market. When you talk about lawsuits in Brazil, I don't know if you are aware of, but Brazil has 78 million pending lawsuits. It's I think it's the I see Mary laughing, but Fabiana sent you a hug. Fabiana Siviero from Didi. She said she worked with you. With Google. Probably you have talked about it with her. But it's a very particular statistic, and there is, for instance, the São Paulo State Court is the biggest court in the world, and why I'm talking about that? What this has to do with technology, since it, in the first look, it means like we're talking about the opposite of it. But if you see in Brazil, if you compare it to the US, in Brazil, you have like 10% of the lawsuits end in a settlement. If you compare it in the US, I think the rates are above 9%. So it's a huge difference. And the reason for that is basically because we don't have data. And when we say we don't have data, I mean, not just us lawyers, but also the general public. We don't know how a lawsuit will be decided, even though if we search for the case law, it's very, in Brazil, we have a very inconstant case law. So it's very important if we want to lower these statistics that I mentioned, if we look into data. And what's the problem with data? We don't have right now anything structured related to open justice or facilitated access to court data. And if you can compare the courts to a hospital, since when you have a problem, like, of course, you go to the hospital. The society, when it has a problem, it goes to the courts. So right now we live in a pandemic related to justice and social and political and economic problems, and we can't create a diagnosis about these issues. So Brazil is following a path to start to open its justice data, and definitely will give several opportunities for those who are working with try to create predictive models, to work with predictive justice, and certainly to lower the statistics that I mentioned before. And we had in Brazil right now, we have we can say the president of the Supreme Court in Brazil is looking, is trying to improve initiatives in technology. The role before was the president of the Supreme Court before, he was trying to hinder this access to data. He was very influenced by the reform in the French Civil Procedure Code that started to criminalize the profiling of judges. But right now we are following a path. We are creating a unified system which will concentrate all data related to courts, all state courts, all federal courts, and we will, as I said, be allowed to work with this data so that's not only an opportunity for lawyers, but also for legal tech companies. We will work with, we will start working with, as I said, with predictive models, with legal analytics, because right now we're living in this situation. So I just want to ask for 1 second to share with you 2 graphics, so you can understand what I mean when I talk about this problem with our case law. This graphic, it was prepared by the Brazilian Association of Jurimetrics. It's an association that works with court data that they can gather, and since we don't have an unified structured data from our courts, they work locally with some courts, with a small claim court, with sometimes a chamber, and they did this study in the upper criminal court of São Paulo. And if you can see in this graphic, they studied whether a sentence that convicted a defendant would be would be overruled by the upper court. And as you can see, if you go to your appeal goes to the 12th criminal chamber, you have 16% of chance that your sentence will be maintained. If you go to the 4th criminal chamber, you have 81% chance that your sentence will be maintained. So in other words, it doesn't matter whether you have committed a crime in São Paulo. What is important is which chamber your appeal will be tried. So that's one graphic that shows a lot for me, at least for me, because we are dealing with criminal justice. And this other one shows the map of the city of São Paulo. In the left map, you can see where are the addresses of the plaintiffs in the city of São Paulo, the concentration of the plaintiffs in the city of São Paulo. And if you look to the right graphic, the graphic in the right, you see that the light blue area is the wealthy area of São Paulo, and the dark blue area is the poorest areas in São Paulo. As you can see, you have a serious problem with access to justice that, for instance, the free access to justice is not solving. So these people are living in a justice blackout. So these are some. Sorry.
Daniel, you want to change the slide? Yes. Oh. Perfect.
Can you see where my
yes,
screen?
Yes, we can see it.
So that's what I wanted to share with you. So I believe also my time is ending, and I hope that you enjoyed and hope to continue this discussion with you all. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much to Daniel, to Mary, and to John. Those were fantastic presentations. And I just want to say, I know we are technically running out of time, but personally listening to all you guys speak, I would have loved for this conversation to not just be 1 hour, but to last an entire day. Such is the insight that's being discussed here. And at the same time, right, I think, John, you mentioned a great point earlier about this being a great time to join the legal tech industry right now. And I just want to say that many people join the industry thinking that change will be instant, but I think people tend to think of, or they try to use the time scales of their personal careers on the time scales of industries. And that really just doesn't add up, right? And if you don't see the change yet, I really encourage everyone here to be the change that you want to see. With that, let me go on to some questions. I think some of you have already been sending me questions, so that's great. Just want to reiterate once more, please feel free to drop your questions in the chat or raise your hand. I will call upon you. So the question that's reached me is this. In my understanding, the legal tech efforts include, number one, the automation of certain tasks that can be done by technology. Number two, people management. 3, managing outsourced tasks. And number 4, reporting. I'm wondering if any of these tasks are solved by other industries and how that works there. Are there success stories other than aspects about project management? So I think this question really is about what are the lessons we can draw from other industries that we can apply to the law. So anyone that wants to go first, please feel free to take a crack at it.
Happy to chime in first. As I kind of mentioned during my chat today, if you look across any corporation, legal is the only one that is not using technology for all these things. So small story, back in, I want to say 2010, 2011, Google and the legal department that I was helping to run, we won this really prestigious industry-wide Innovation in Legal award, huge award for the industry. And we won it because we had created a dashboard where you could compare your budget to your actual spend. You should laugh. Everyone should be laughing because that is not innovative. That is not new technology. That's something that you would expect that everyone would already have. And everyone in the company has had that for decades, for years, forever, right? Only legal is like, oh, I don't wonder how much we're spending on our legal matters. It was completely opaque. We did not know. And we had to do a lot of jumping through hoops and putting processes in place and collecting data to just be able to showcase our budget versus actual. And I'm sure there are today lots of legal departments who can't get to that level of data for their legal spend or their legal matters. So we are way behind. There is absolutely lessons in automation or reporting and data that every other vertical has been using. That's common sense, right? That comes very naturally in day to day in how you run a department. We are very far behind. So,
John, Daniel, agree with Mary? Don't agree? I'm sure you guys agree.
I will agree that we're definitely far behind. I think even other traditional industries that have some similar like structural systemic elements that were preventing innovation, like banking and finance, also being incredibly risk averse, kind of beholden to tradition. But we're seeing banking and finance like fintech, the rise of fintech. Fintech is huge now, and we see fintech, from the legal tech world as being around like a decade ahead of us. And now fintech companies are valued at astronomical amounts of money. So they were able to automate so many of the processes that originally used people to do. A lot of the banking transactions you can do from your mobile phone can be done over the internet. Data is stored in the cloud. So I kind of see fintech as being a bit of a template for, or there's a lot of lessons to be learned from that industry that can be applied to legal.
Great. I do have another question. Okay, I have one question that's come up in the chat, but I see someone raising his hand. So maybe I'll go with the raised hand first. Masa, please go ahead.
Thank you, Josh. Actually, while I was working in the legal tech industry over the last few years, I saw some clients getting to know the importance of what's called information governance, like in other words, to manage corporate data in a sophisticated manner so that they can identify where the relevant data is stored when they get, especially when they get sued. So my question here is, understanding that it's a sort of big business as of today, how long do you think these trends would last? And my second question is, what do you think the next trend after that will be? Thank you.
Thank you, Masa. Does anyone want to have a go at it? Daniel, do you want to have any thoughts on your end?
I believe that it would be better if Mary or John gets that one.
John or Mary, any thoughts?
So I think the question is about information governance and whether that will continue to be a trend within companies. I mean, we're very early days. So yes, I think it will be around. I mean, John probably knows this area better than any of us who are on the panel, but most companies are still trying to grapple with what the best practices or how to set up their own companies' retention policies and data policies. So in terms of us getting to a place for the industry where it's no longer a big focus, I think it'll be a while because each one of us are still trying to solve it on our own. And it will be some time before we get to, a set of, this is how all companies should operate as standard protocol. John, you probably know this better than anyone.
Well, I only can speak to, I guess, what I've seen in the companies that I've worked at. But I guess even in the legal, in a big law environment, one of the rising departments is knowledge management. And this is trying to leverage all of the shared collective information and knowledge that's being acquired by lawyers across the entire firm, and how to leverage that in a way that's productive for the company, and of course it can also meet regulations and compliance standards. Yeah, I think especially as the next or just the rest of the 21st century for foreseeable future, how data and data security and data privacy and kind of leveraging the insights of data to drive efficiency is going to be so important. Yeah, I definitely see that as a trend moving forward. But again, as Mary said, it still is early days, so there's definitely a lot more that we can do.
And I do want to jump in here as well. Oh yeah, Daniel, please go ahead.
No, just a short comment on that. I don't know if you are aware of, but the Brazilian data protection law entered into force in 2018, and from that time, I was able to be working with the implementation of the compliance in some companies. And what was really interesting was that after we did a governance project on data privacy, especially in the legal department of the companies, they started to map contracts and start to develop and buy a software to manage contracts. And it was something that they moved it to the from the paper to the digital. It was the data protection law that made them do this movement. Just a compliment.
Thank you so much, Daniel. And just a quick point as well, right? Masa, I believe you come from Japan. And everyone thinks of Japan as this model of innovation, of robotics, of automation, and so many other advanced technologies. And I do know from my own experience that legal seems to be the one category that seems to be holding out against this wave of technological change that's been constantly sweeping over Japan. And that's why we want to do something like BLIT, right? To be able for students from all these different countries that come into BLIT to Berkeley Law to experience this energy, these ideas, then to be the seed that goes back to your countries and spread the word, spread the ideas. And that's really what we want to be able to do here as a global movement. I do have a few other questions. I know we are running out of time, but I do want to tie in a few questions together, right? Which is this: what should students do to be better skilled for the future of the legal industry? And what sort of careers and roles do you think are waiting for law students that are out there? Is there a clear, defined career path that they can look forward to? Or is it something a little bit more amorphous, or do people still have to go back to law firms for their jobs? John, I know you touched on it a little bit. I wanted to hear also what Mary and Daniel think about it as well. Mary or Daniel?
Yeah, I can go first then. Sorry, I thought John was going to go. Look, this is a super exciting time to be in law school, because I think if you look 10 years ago, you only had one career path, right? You graduated and you had one option, which was go to a big law firm and hang out there for a few years until you developed enough skills and the opportunity to do something else. Whereas now, there's so many different paths that you can take in legal with a JD. You can go to a law firm, sure. You can go in-house. You can go to what's called a law company, an alternative service provider that are delivering legal services in a different way. There are legal technology companies. You can be a legal project manager. You can be a legal data analyst. You can go into legal tech development. You can go into all these different avenues that are suddenly open that were not options 10 or so years ago. So I don't think there is a prescriptive path now, but the beauty of it is that you can make your own path and find areas that are interesting to you. There's also no better time to be in this space. As we sort of beat up on the industry and saying we're so behind everyone, there's so much opportunity. That is what makes it exciting, because everything that you're going to do in your career is what's going to pave the way for the future. Like, this is the time that we're defining what the future of legal is going to look like. So I think you're in a beautiful spot in terms of what skill sets you need to have. You're all doing the right thing, and there is no, prescriptive, you need to go become a data analytics person or learn how to code. None of that really matters. Frankly, I mean, you heard John, me come from different backgrounds, right? You just really have to have that mindset that there is a better way, and to go into wherever you go, whether it's a law firm or some other environment, and challenge the status quo, to not just take this industry that's always been looking backwards and how has things been done before, and instead of doing that, question it. Ask, what is the ultimate goal? Are there different ways that we can get there? Can we use technology? Can we use different types of people and backgrounds to get to the end goal? And that is what I think is truly going to be transformative. John, Dan?
Yeah, I would double click on that. And, just kind of, I guess, being in law school has so far been about understanding the practice of law, but you can actually make it your competitive advantage in the business of law, and that requires understanding the technology and developing an innovative and mindset, which also involves developing kind of creative confidence, like Josh said. Be the change that you want to be. It's not easy, especially when you're going up a gigantic industry that has been successful at what it's been doing for hundreds of years. But clients these days, they're looking for the T-shaped lawyer, you know, just having knowledge of understanding the practice of law is not going to be enough. You're going to need to be able to understand their business, understand how data works, how technology can transform their or you know, transform how you deliver your service to them. And you know, if you can't keep up with that, then you're not going to be able to stay competitive in the future of the legal market. So I forgot what the original question was, but hopefully that added some color.
No, you definitely hit it on the spot. Daniel, do you have anything you want to add?
Yes, especially when you mean when we're talking about lawyers that work in an outsourced way or whether in a legal department. I think for all of them, you have to understand technology. I mean, you don't have to code, but you have to understand how technology works. Even if you're working, for instance, with oil and gas, if you are working with retail, you need to understand technology because technology is affecting every single industry. So I think that's my main hint for the future. Answer your question and adding to
Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, unfortunately, we are at the end of time for this panel. We are bound, after all, by the laws of time. But I just wanted to thank Mary, John, Daniel for a fantastic introduction to our audience here, to the world and the state of legal tech out there. And be sure to join BLIT for more such conversations in the future and for ways that you will be able to put these technologies and skills into practice. So I hope everyone will join me in giving a round of applause for Mary, John, as well as Daniel. Thank you so much. Be sure to stick around, guys, so that we can all join the photo taking session, which will be happening soon. But now I will hand the time over to Akil, who will be introducing a bit more about BLIT, what we will be doing, and how you can get involved. Akil,
hey guys, good afternoon. Just going to take a very quick 2 minutes to talk about the space that BLIT is going to be looking to fill at Berkeley. We've of course spoken and we've heard so much insight from the speakers today about what the industry is already doing and the direction that we can expect to be moving in. So what does BLIT mean for Berkeley? So we're on the second slide. So we're here's our purpose, right? And Mary alluded to this in the very first minute that she was talking, that change in legal practice is finally coming. And new approaches, even though they originally came from in-house, they're now also at firms. So the outcomes that we aspire to are now focusing more on the students, going away from this is just how it is in big law, that mentality. And for students, that means upskilling and access to roles. Mary mentioned 15 different roles that you could look at entering, and this is only stuff that has already been conceived of. We can conceive of an unlimited number of roles that one can enter in going forward as well. So what is BLIT going to do at Berkeley? So that's of what we're looking at. The first is education and awareness. Speaker series very similar to what you've heard today, but of course going a lot more in depth into specifics of the innovation that's out there. We want Berkeley students to hear about what's happening and to be connected to those that they can collaborate with. And you know, some of the brightest startups that we've heard of have started in law school itself or schools outside of law school, even within legal tech innovation. So don't hesitate to reach out to us to be connected to any of our speakers at any of the speaker series, just like today as well. Jonathan spoke about being the Forrest Gump of legal tech. That's something every newcomer in the industry can relate to, and Berkeley is an awesome place to start your journey. So that's on the speaker series. You're going to hear people come in and talk about their paths. We're going to be organizing decals, which is student-led classes for credit, where you can learn from people in other faculties. So law students can take classes that are hosted by, say, CS grads. And this complicated phrase that you see, output-oriented cross-faculty courses, those basically mean you'll get credit for working on your startups. So we're looking to launch courses like that at Berkeley. In thought leadership, this is where our incredible faculty comes in. Often what happens is students only hear and get to read about the incredible work our professors are doing once it's put out, or if you're working with a journal, you get to hear it during the editing phase. We want to be a platform to connect students to our incredible faculty, to be able to collaborate and work with the professors while they're working on path-breaking things with industry or even in academia. So think of us as a platform for that. And industry applications, it's pretty self-explanatory. We're going to be bringing in industry to do demos, to talk about what they're working on, what students can work with them on, and here's where a lot of the career opportunities will come up for our members. Quickly moving into our partnerships, of course, as Wayne's already mentioned, we're proudly supported by the BCLT. And we're looking to collaborate with every single faculty within Berkeley. We look forward to hear big shout out to that and as well as BCLT and the journal too.
Okay, everyone, I think we have a few technical issues, but I think what I'll do is to...
I got it. You guys can hear me, right? Right.
Yeah.
So big shout out to the associations that helped us amplify the news about today. And just moving on to the next slide, we're a team of 5 right now. What do you see? You heard from Matt and Josh and I. Anuja and Surati are also LLMs at Berkeley Law. Here's where you come in. We're looking to diversify our team. We want JDs as well as folks from the other schools to join us and let us be what we're aspiring to be for Berkeley as a whole. So here's a QR code, scan it. We're also going to drop the link in the chat. Join us as members quick shout out to Chris and Gunn, our first members. We've already got people. We've already got the forms coming in. So thank you so much. And before we move away, we just want to really quickly say a huge thank you to our faculty advisors, Professors Bruno Salma, and as well as our mentor, Chris Hoofnagel, who've helped us see the value in BLIT and also made us see some of the gaping holes in our earlier plans and suitably modify them, and of course, pushing us to launch today. Thank you so much. You'll be hearing a lot more from them as well as from us. Now, just as we wind up, if I can quickly, just to commemorate this occasion we're very excited about today. So if I can request everyone to just put their cameras on, our guests as well, whoever is comfortable doing that, if we can take a really quick picture to mark our first event together. And we have been recording today's session. We'll be putting out some key takeaways from today, as well as some clips. So yeah, if everyone can just put their cameras on, we'll do a quick screen grab. Don't be shy.
We've got one.
Thanks so much. Okay, I think we've got more people with their cameras on now. Maybe one more.
There you go.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Josh, over to you.
All right. I guess there's nothing much else for me to say other than to thank everyone for joining us today. I've dropped the link to our site right on in the Zoom chat. Right, I think we will be sending out a form for everyone to register their interest. I strongly encourage all Berkeley Law students to join us to build this journey together, this important pillar in Berkeley Law to strengthen our law and technology offerings and to build your career as well. Last but not least, thank you once again to Mary, John, and Daniel for joining us today. Thank you all so much, and we will definitely see you next time. Take care, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.